and Mr. Ganesh from InSpace, which is India's space regulator, and to welcome you all for our monthly space call. I hope this is just the beginning that where India and the US can start discussing issues related to space, and we hope this is an opportunity for everyone to take this opportunity to interact with India's space regulators and understand the Indian space ecosystem. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Dr. Vinod Kumar, whose introduction I'm going to read out right now. It's actually quite long. So that is a very impressive list of accomplishments. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really pleased to have you. So Dr. Vinod Kumar is presently the Director for Promotion Directorate at the Indian National Space Authorization Center, Department of Space. Before joining InSpace, he was heading the Geo Synchronous Control Dynamics Design Division and was Deputy Project Director, Altitude and Orbit Control System at the UR Rao Satellite Center, ISRO, Bengaluru. He holds the role of an Executive Director at the Astronautical Society of India. He is the Fellow of Institution of Engineers, India, and the Institutions of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers. He was awarded the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Orbit Management of Spacecraft Operations. He was again chosen for Team Excellence Award in 2011 for GSAT-12 spacecraft AOCS design. He is an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. In his doctoral research, he developed autonomous navigation techniques for co-located geostationary satellites at desired longitudes using Indian regional navigational satellite systems. He is ISO 9001:2015 certified lead auditor for Indian Institute of Quality Management. He has over 3 dozen publications in national and international reputed journals and conferences. His additional technical interests include missile detection, AI, terrain navigation, guidance, pulsar navigation, space reentry, Mars explorations, and interplanetary missions. Before joining the URSC, he worked with the Indian Air Force on fighter aircraft control systems and also held faculty position at Regional Engineering College, Haryana, India, and SJPML Institute of Technology, Rador, Haryana. That is a huge list of accomplishments, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Samir, for long introduction. Much appreciate.
A-
Okay. Need
Absolutely,
not
sir.
be. Okay, yeah.
And I just also wanted to introduce your team member, Mr. Ganesh Mohan, who's currently Assistant Director, Promotion Director, has more than 12 years of cross-functional experience within Department of Space and ISRO. He started his career with VSSC in 2010 as systems developer in the aerospace mechanisms area. His primary responsibilities included design, development, and qualification of state separation systems for human launch, space flight, and reusable launch vehicle operations of ISRO. Thank you, Mr. Ganesh, for joining us today. So, as
Thanks
some
for having
ground
me.
rules, I think we'll have initial remarks by our Executive Director, Mr. Jacob Galish, followed by remarks from our guests from InSpace, and then an interactive session where you can ask questions to our InSpace guests today. Over to you, Jay. Thank you so much.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Samir, for that warm introduction. And I really want to thank our colleagues at InSpace for joining us today. For those of you that know me, you are aware of my passion around space industry and the commercial space, but also the potential of the US-India relationship. You know, we can all look at sort of the IT industry and know that India's got an incredible reputation as a digital powerhouse. Some of the core competitiveness and competencies are around just really superb high-level technical skill. There's also scale of resources, and you find passion, and of course you do find, kind of cost competitiveness in many ways. A lot of those same functions can translate to the space industry, which, as we know, represents roughly a $400 billion annual sector. Most of that activity is not being conducted by governments. Most of it's in the private sector, and most of it's in user segments such as SATCOM and ground systems and satellite navigation and GPS. As India moves to open up its sector, there are tremendous opportunities, but perhaps more importantly, synergies for the US-India relationship. And that's why I am so really pleased not only to have the InSpace team here today, but also looking back over the last 3 months, 3 years, over the last decade, to see this massive transition in not only India's space ecosystem, but how India looks at space internationally. We hope this is the first step. We saw that recently with the launch of the Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies in January. We were very pleased to host that at the Chamber of Commerce. Space was a major portion of that initiative. Commercial space was a particular deliverable, and we have been encouraging the governments to implement the US-India commercial space dialogue. We are strong supporters of that. We have suggested that idea that there's a need for commercial and academic space to be involved with governments and both on the civilian and the military side. And we think that the time is ripe to move forward. We think that the new space policy is a significant and positive step forward, but it's also an incremental step, and many other policies and actions need to follow through. But at the end of the day, commercial space is about businesses, it's about people, it's about technology and capability. And we're hoping that USIBC can provide a consistent platform to not only talk big picture, but to talk deal making, to talk about new products and services being developed, new applications, and how we could bring together the US and India community in the broadest sense. And so that's why I am really excited today to launch the first formal US-India, I guess the USIBC, we're going to have a monthly space call, and we're hoping to bring in all kinds of experts and create opportunities that we can get down to the nitty-gritty as well as talk as the big picture. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Kumar and his team. Thank you again. Please think of us as a resource. Please think of this as an initial step and an ongoing process to engage and further create the US-India commercial space ecosystem. So with that, sir, I hand the microphone and opportunity to share over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Jack, and thank you, Mr. Samir. And I really thank a lot of veterans here, Madam Rajana Kaul and all. So nice to see you here. It's a very good initiative from your side, IBC side. We really appreciate. And as you know, I think all of us are aware of Indian space sector reforms, which has been brought in by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi government. And I will request maybe later half to give some 2-3 slides, Ganesh, just to start our thing. Yes, it's the need of the hour to build US-India relations further. And I see the role of USIBC is very important in this aspect, because we keep listening the point. You all are aware that ITAR issues they have been raising, and I really appreciate the efforts of USIBC in this direction to ease the restrictions of ITAR and EAR or simplify them. That will be one of the prominent demand from Indian industry side, which they have been telling us that how we can enable when we ask them question. So really, InSpace is known for ease of doing business. So we are here to support Indian startups, to help USIBC and even US industries to connect with us and vice versa for the mutual benefit. And one more very important thing is we had a discussion with US TDA where they organized the reverse trade missions. So probably that also we are working on it, and this is a very good initiative where Indian companies can visit the US and get the benefit or get connected with each other to do the mutual interaction and further development. So with this thing, US-India commercial dialogue, we should start, and we should work in this direction, because you know that in April 6th, we have Indian space policy in place. And following months, in last month itself, we have signed our Artemis Accord. So the relationship is growing both politically as well as at the company level. We are seeing a lot of companies from US are approaching us, and we are having a good dialogue and positive dialogues with them. And I see really the offers of US IBC at this time. It's very crucial time. We should take it forward to newer heights. So that's all from my side. And I will just for the benefit of the people who may not be aware of what is Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, InSpace. So I request Ganesh, can you put the slides and explain little bit about our organization, the newly formed organization? You're able to present?
Sure. So am I audible to start off with?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon here, probably good morning, and for many of you. So as Sav mentioned, US and India, we are really going through a transformative phase with respect to our relationship in space sector. So what I've essentially done here is I've created some 8 to 9 slides, which essentially covers InSpace, and it's more of a journey where we are trying to convey what is InSpace and what is it that we are trying to do, and you might be able to pick the bits on what is the collaboration opportunities, and what are those fundamental engagement mechanisms which we need to correct to sort of streamline the trading. So to start off with, this is a summary of what all has been happening in the space sector from an India point of view. So as I was mentioning, till 2020, so to speak, that's when this announcement of so-called unlocking of space sector was announced by the government of India. Yeah.
Ganesh, you changed
so
the
is the
slide.
slide change? Yes, I did, but is that not visible? The second slide.
Go to full screen better.
Full screen,
Yeah.
Right. So 2020, as I mentioned, was when the space sector was so-called unlocked. And what is this unlocking? I'll come to in the coming slides. So then,
can you put it on full screen, please? Sorry to interrupt. For participants, if you could put it on full screen, that would be great. Slideshow sometimes.
Yeah, it is on slide mode now for me. How is it?
It's turn it to 100% or something like that. Just make it a little bigger.
I think probably you have
no, bottom right, you see a percentage. Yeah. Find the right one. There we go.
Share is mode.
Okay. All right, keep going. So sorry.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, unlocking, and then this new body called InSpace was created. Then following that, it took almost 2.5 years for the Indian space policy to come out, which was in April this year. Now what's the next steps that are coming in, which is the first one is the FDI policy, which is essentially foreign direct investments. How can a foreign company come in and put their money into Indian space sector? And then finally, because there are lawyers as well here, they would very well agree with me the importance of a bill which sort of formalizes all of this. So Space Activities Bill, which is being worked upon and which we hope will come out in the very near future. So this is more or less a summary of what the space sector has been from a fundamental, conceptual development point of view. Now, this is what the Department of Space in India, in an overall, picture, how it's going to look like. So we have the Prime Minister on the top, under whom there is a Department of Space, which is the administrative part of it. And there's a Space Commission, which is the apex.
Next page, no, it has not moved to next page. I see. You have to do something.
Ganesh, probably you can share it again.
Yeah,
I'll just share once again.
Share you do it screen share.
And of course, we hope to make these slides available to participants. So if Dr. Kumar, you and your team share it with us afterwards, perfect.
Yeah, now it's perfect.
We'll share it with everyone.
Right. Yeah, Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So this is how the Department of Space, as I was mentioning, is looking like. You have the Department of Space, which is the administrative wing of space activities, is under the Prime Minister. And we have something called a Space Commission, which is the apex decision-making body represented by all the senior secretaries from the different government departments. And so under the Department of Space, we have the main center for R&D, which is ISRO. And there are all these centers under ISRO. ISRO, not the center, but rather an organization. And all these centers, VSSC is the Launch Vehicle Development Center, LPSC is the Liquid Propulsion System Center, which essentially develops the liquid engines for us. So all these centers come under ISRO. And then you have CPSCs, which are nothing but public sector undertakings, which are 100% government-owned commercial entities. We have two new space the commercial activities under the Department of Space, under the government. And then you have a few autonomous bodies. Autonomous bodies are nothing but standalone bodies with their own management structure, reporting straight to DOS. These are formed for some particular research, purpose. And then finally, we have InSpace, which is the latest body in it. And InSpace has been, as you can see, has been created in a curious manner. While we are administratively reporting to Department of Space for all our administrative reasons and all sort of purposes, we also have a reporting structure to Space Commission, which makes our decision making fluid and direct in one way or the other. That's why we are more or less an autonomous agency. We are driven by a board of directors, to which I'll come to later. So that's essentially how the Department of Space is structured in India. So now if you sort of segment the actors in the Indian space ecosystem, we can sort of bracket them into four. You have ISRO, which is the R&D wing, which will take on all the technical technology development and scientific missions, and all the R&D concerning space will be handled by ISRO. Then you have InSpace, whose job is essentially to build a commercial space industry, to regulate and authorize a commercial space industry, and in the process generate an overall ecosystem, which we are trying to pitch it in a whole of nation approach, where we are saying the civil society should be part of it. And then you have NGEs, which are nothing but non-governmental entities, which include everybody other than government and NSIL. So all of these, including startups, legacy industries, academia, all of them would come under here. And the chief, sorry.
Ganesh, I would like to add one point. See, with this space sector reforms, Indian private company can do anything under the sun in space. So that's what kind of far-reaching reforms they are, which has been carried out by the present government. And there are some salient point he has put up here. This policy, Indian Space Policy 2023, is available for download from our InSpace website, where bottom right it is available. You can see there, and please read it and see that what all things you can do with India. Continue, Ganesh.
Yeah. As Dr. Vinod was saying, that essentially covers what NGs can do, end-to-end space activities, and open to collaborations in all aspects. And then finally, you have the fourth arm, which is New Space India Limited, which is the commercial arm of the Department of Space. And yeah, the space policy is available for download, and the detailed policy guidelines of it is under preparation, and it will be out in the near future. So summing up, our mission is to enable private sector participation in the space activities, boost the economy, and develop a space force for a resurgent Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar, it's an Indian word. It essentially means self-reliant. So that's the mission statement for InSpace. And so this is the organizational structure for InSpace. When I said we are an autonomous agency under the Department of Space, this is how it's looking like. So there's a chairman InSpace, who's Dr. Pavan Goenka. And there's a board of directors of InSpace, which has a multifunctional representation. We are sitting as the InSpace board to drive the organization forward. And there are 4 directorates, in fact, 3 directorates and a division. Dr. Vinod heads the promotion directorate. Our main aim is to promote and enable the industry. So essentially to build the commercial industry in India with support from ISRO, of course. And then you have the Program Management and Authorization Directorate, who is essentially the authorizer for all sort of space activities that will be happening from India. And then you have the Technical Directorates, which is essentially the interfacing point between any of the startups with ISRO facility. So if a startup, they can't essentially have the facility or have the wherewithal to invest in high-end technical facilities, we have created a seamless process for them to work with ISRO labs. And there's a whole back-end process infrastructure that's being set up, and those are all handled by the Technical Directorate. And then finally, we have a Legal, Finance and Administration division, which is headed by a joint secretary level officer with the Government of India. And we have Department of Space, who is the administrative head of what we do. And Chairman InSpace, as I was mentioning earlier, reports to the Space Commission, which is the apex decision-making body for all space activities in the country. So this is how the organizational structure for InSpace is looking like. And so this is how the whole idea of structuring InSpace is looking like. So we are trying to be a single window agency for all sort of activities that will happen in the space sector. So you have the testing support and technical consultancy part, which I mentioned was where the Technical Directorate is taking the lead role. You have TOT. Just now, in fact, we have a couple of weeks back, we have announced the technology transfer for our small satellite launch vehicle to Indian industries. That expression of interest was released, and that process is ongoing. And the right side of it, as I mentioned, is the authorization part, be it launches, be it satellite, be it establishing ground stations, and for the data access, Earth observation. So all these activities that one will be doing will go through the PMA Directorate, who is the authorizing. And then finally, the capacity building part, which is, develop capacities within all the institutes in India and bring a space culture in India. And all of this would more or less get aggregated or get managed through InSpace. So all these agencies that I mentioned, DOS, ISRO, NSIL, MIB is Ministry of Information and Broadcasting regarding the SATCOM, DOT is Department of Telecom, DPIIT is the Department for Promotion of Investments and Trade, and MEA finally is the Ministry of External Affairs. So any of these wings are more or less involved in the space sector, and we hope that all the requirements get aggregated from these ministries to InSpace, and we hope that we become a single window interface for the industries in the times to come. And this 4 buckets more or less summarizes what all activities that we are doing. As I mentioned, promotion and enablement, nothing but building an industry. So we just yesterday we had a brainstorming session in which I guess some of you at least might have been part of, where we debated on what the Indian space industry should look like in the next decade, and we have sort of come up with a number as to how this the economy should be sized at. And to reach that number, how do we increase the number of activities, and to what X should the activities increase from what we are right now? And then industry and international outreach naturally comes with industry promotion. And then enablement is nothing but build those companies. Now, how do you build those? You have to ensure funding to start off with. You have to ensure access to ISRO facilities, and you have to sort of reduce their cost and effort in getting things done. So that's where the enablement comes in. And authorizing, as I mentioned, all the space activities from India is getting authorized by InSpace now, or PMA Directorate does it. And to create that single window agency, that's most important, particularly from a SATCOM point of view, where you have multiple agencies, multiple departments in Government of India involved. And finally, supervising. Once all these activities start happening, you should be able to have a check and balance on that, which is what the supervisory part of our role entails. Just moving on, this is a summary of how things have been happening. So essentially what we have done is we do have something called the InSpace digital platform, which is a seamless digital platform where we are aggregating the details of the companies with respect to what they want to do, what is their vision, and if they want any specific action points that needs to be done, there is provision to do that. And it is through IDP that we communicate with the industries in India. So this was released in 2022 August. We're just approaching a year, and in 1 year, we have received around 290 plus applications, and the breakup of the areas where these applications have come from are listed here. There are about 1,800, 1,750 to be exact, the number of users that are on this site. Startups, academic institutes, all of them come into this platform. So we have signed about 39. In fact, it should be 41 with a couple of MOU signings that happened just yesterday. Sorry about that. And we've issued 16 authorizations and about 20 JPIPs. And JPIP is nothing but a joint program implementation plan, which, as I was mentioning, that's the mechanism through which a company get access to ISRO facilities to conduct their tests, be it whatever it may be. And that's handled by the technical directorate. So some of the notable activities. Yeah. These are some of the notable activities.
These are the final details. Okay, just it gives a gist of how it is developing its space.
How it is.
That's all.
Yeah, that's all. Right. So this is a summary of the statistics about the number of startups and the funding, and a bar chart essentially on how the investor confidence is growing up. And just to summarize, this is pretty much how it is. If you look at it from the downstream side, we do have a very robust IT and IT-enabled infrastructure sector, which is open for all sort of collaborations. If for the upstream, we do have legacy companies, we do have startups and MSMEs, which, as I was mentioning, has an unhindered access to ISRO facilities thanks to the JPIP mechanism, which has been set. And through all this to happen, and InSpace is just connecting all these nodes. It is more like a bridge. All of this, we do have transfer mechanism and the administrative backend. I'd say 80% of it is set in place. And the final ones like space industry standards and all are in the final stages and are getting implemented. So that essentially is a summary of what InSpace is. I've given our contact details as well. And so, yeah, that's it. That's it. Thanks a lot for listening. So
great.
Yeah, over to you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful overview. And if you make these slides available, we will share these far and wide. And also, if you can stop sharing, that would be great. We're moving to the question and answer portion of the conversation. And we have a few questions, but I'm gonna start with the elephant in the room. So India has one of the largest satellite constellations in the world. INSAT provides communication services. In the new model, where does INSAT fit? Because you had a slide that said that ISRO, the traditional builder operator of the SATCOM network, would not be involved in those sorts of issues, right? And then you have a commercialization effort. And in the middle of this, you have a 30+ constellation of satellite communications that not only covers India, but by the nature of space covers a much broader area in South Asia. So what's the thinking of how the government might handle INSAT in the future? And how would that impact? I know we have some SATCOM operators here as well. How might that impact, you're thinking about other SATCOM operators investing hundreds of millions of dollars in satellites that would serve India? Easy question first, sir.
Yeah, a very good question, rather. So if you see presently also, our 60% of the capacity requirement is met by foreign players. And whatever ISRO is, around 40 to 45% is from the ISRO. See, Government of India has some of the commitments, and Indian space sector is building. Now, we are enabling the Indian private industries to build the satellite for India as well as for the world. So in this process, what will happen? The capacity requirement of nation, whenever it comes, government rather, will be made by NG as well as the ISRO. Presently also ISRO is taking a lot of help from the private vendors. Wherever they are, let's say they can make 500 kg satellite and ISRO wants a 6,000, nation wants a 6,000 kg satellite. So those demands will be slowly transferred to the private industry as well. So I hope it's clear that private players will continue to get involved more and more in this, whether it is a Indian or foreign. Now, very important question I was seeing related to this only from Ismail Saril from maybe Intelsat, yeah, right? So I will link it to see the FDI policy is under final stage. It's already, it can be released within days or weeks rather. So it's under final touch. And I'll say it will have two components. One is the autonomous route and other will be the administrative route. The percentage we will not disclose because government can change tomorrow that number, which is not good. But yes, it will be much, much better than existing norm of investing in satellite sectors. In some of the satellite systems, it may be 100%, it may be 50%, that government will decide as per their thing. So we will not comment on this because that information is final authority is the government. And as far as he is telling which of these entities will be, yes, it will be well clear in the FDI policy. Who will do what? Yes, it is in final stage of approval. So I hope I am clear that private players will continue to play important role where we need to connect each last mile connectivity we need in the nation, and there's a huge demand. If you see our BBNL, the special unit made by the government is investing, I think 50,000 crore already invested to connect the last mile through optical fiber. They have started satellite also. So there is a huge requirement and need to connect the people. So in that, private sector will play a very important role. I can say that, sure. Hope I'm clear.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So our first question from the participants is Cheryl Ismail, who you referenced from Intelsat.
Lost your voice.
Can you hear me now, sir? Can someone else hear me?
Not able to hear. Whether others are also having this problem?
No, I can hear you.
Am I audible?
You are audible,
you.
Dr.
Yes,
Kumar.
sir.
Both of you are audible.
Can you hear us, Dr.
Change
Kumar?
suddenly? Which problem?
Dr. Kumar, can you hear us, sir? Houston, can you hear us? Major Tom.
What happened?
I don't know. After network, you want to come there?
Let me see if I can.
You want to come there? There is.
Not
Are you
able
able to hear us?
Need to.
Yeah, Jay, we can
It's
hear
going to
you.
Yeah, connected, no? Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Can
you
you hear
are.
us?
Yes.
No.
I'm going to ask you, Dr. Kumar, to maybe come back in. Okay, great. We'll just take a pause here. So we will just give a second for Dr. Kumar to come in. And while we do that, oh, here he comes in. Great.
I'm back.
Dr. Kumar, are you able to hear us now, sir?
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
wonderful.
Please, your
All
question,
right.
please. Yeah.
Great.
Sorry
Our
for
first-
some network
No worries.
switching.
Our first question is from Cheryl. Cheryl, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Dr. Kumar, for joining us today. I had the pleasure 2 weeks ago of participating in a panel in New Delhi with Dr. P.K. Jain, and we did have an opportunity to thank InSpace for moving ahead with implementing the space policy rules. I had two questions. One is you addressed the question of FDI rules, and it's good to know that we will be looking out for it within the next few days. I hope it's not like the announcements about the 2020 space policy that came out in 2023. So let's hope that things move along more quickly. I'm very hopeful given the recent activity at InSpace, ISRO, and DOS. My question is the space policy being developed by DOS or InSpace?
Yeah, very good question, sir. Very good. I appreciate. First thing I'll say that FDI policy took time. In fact, InSpace reforms were announced in 2020 June. We were operationalized last year in 2022 June. So if you see from that, 8 to 10 months after due deliberation, we could bring out the Indian space policy with consultation from the stakeholders. So it goes through revision. So you should appreciate that the government of India has taken a couple of decisions, and now we have changed the speed as well. And the teething troubles are there we are also a startup, in fact. So in spite of that, we are moving good. And about your space policy formulation, it is a joint efforts of Department of Space, ISRO, InSpace, as well as non-government entities. They are also a participant to it. All industry is also giving the input that we are taking seriously. And associations also, Indian Space Association is there, ISPA, or CII is there for that matter. We are very open and trying to involve all the stakeholders in our decision-making process. For FDI also, we have taken input from them. It is not, we are not working in silos. Just efforts are being led by InSpace, DOS participation, ISRO participation, and all other stakeholders. Right?
Thank you.
And
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not only here, I'll say like FDI policy, it has gone for inter-ministerial consultation. We should not see tomorrow surprise that some other department. So I am also a stakeholder, and so all these things are over. Now under final touches, it can be announced. I can say tomorrow also. Yes, sir.
To give full confidence, can you talk about the level of staffing that you have? Are you fully staffed? Do you have enough people working on these issues to deliver results in the time that you would like to?
And yes, I will say yes, we are well staffed, and we are increasing our strength also further, because our this thing is there. And moreover, I'll tell you, we have started complete digital system of processing the proposals. So we don't deal with them that manually or in person. We don't ask for proposals in physical form. They can sit at their house and home, go to our website and submit the proposals. And after submission, they will get an email. This is your number, and we have started evaluating your proposal. After that, the status will be shown online. He did not call us. He did not wait for he just log into our website. He or she or they can see their status, what is happening. And this process, we are extending till memorandum of understanding signing or NDA signing. So we are extending automatic. We need not even sign. We will generate digital signature and do that. That is our target. So in addition to this, true to its spread, what we are taking, we are doing the work to the consultants also in a very professional manner. They are engaged to do certain tasks. So that way we are working, and things are going well. Now I will tell you one simple example. In last 3-4 months, in Feb, I think we have inaugurated our design lab. The design center is already inaugurated, and NGEs are using. They are registering online, paying the required fee online, getting confirmation dates, and going and working. So this number is
Pick
also
something
increasing.
different.
So we are able to handle the things, and we will increase as the demand increases. Yes, please. Next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm turning the microphone over to Rajana Kaur from Do Associates. She's been described to me as one of India's premier space lawyers, and knowing her well, I would have to agree there is no legal expert in India more knowledgeable about international space affairs than you, Rajana. Thank you for joining. The microphone is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Jay. And thank you, Vinodji. It was good to meet you after long and to hear you. There is absolutely no doubt that our new space companies are hugely benefited by the effort and really by you hit the road running, so to speak. And they're all being benefited by the fact that you're authorizing them, enabling them to use the facilities. I wanted to ask you about this humongous set of roles that InSpace has got altogether, which includes, according to your slides, hand-holding, which you're doing brilliantly, promoting, which you're doing brilliantly, authorizing, which you're doing to enable use. Now, I'm concerned about regulation. You say that you're going to be the regulator as well, and I am seeing, as a lawyer, a conflict of interest in promotion, authorization, regulation. The only task that you've left out is that of the licensor. So why have you left that out, first and foremost? And how do you expect these very critical and important tasks for there to be a separation, because there is a conflict of interest here? Have you
we
thought about
understand.
it, and how do you propose to address that?
Yeah. No, it's a very right question. We have been asked the promotion and regulators are not together. Generally, but it's a different concept in total. Madam, you are veteran in our field. In fact, we learn from you many things. So we should appreciate your knowledge in this field, and this question is very valid. See, so that's why our name itself says Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, not regulator center. So
नहीं,
in
आपके
fact,
slide में था इसलिए पूछा.
okay, उसमें indirectly we are doing. Yes, we are very right. He has put it, but what happened? No, we are a kind of soft phase. That is the reason we don't want to impose, but authorizing means it's a kind of regulation. But after due consultation and discussion, very right, both are saying when you are authorizing something, right? It is regulation also. The without authorization, he cannot carry out the activities. Very right. Legal terminology may be different, but as we understand, when we give a certificate to someone, we authorize, it is absolute. So our chairman has told us clearly that yes, promotion is our soft phase, and authorizer is the different. He takes his. There we are doing well, and we are having our roles well defined internally also. So that way we are, and we will prove it that this is the best way we can work. Right? Very well question, madam. Further, we will learn from you and try to keep moving in this direction.
Well, thank you, Vinodji. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We have a question from Tachanya. Over to you.
Hi, I hope everybody can hear me. Chaitanya Kore, Center for Space Governance. So InSpace was mentioned that they are working with the U.S. Trade and Development Agency for some of this promotion work in the U.S. But that is definitely an independent agency of the U.S. government. So just wanted to check and see whether InSpace was working in some fashion with the U.S. Department of Commerce agencies mentioned in the January ISIT meeting. That's the U.S. Department of Commerce International Trade Agency, Office of Space Commerce, any of these groups specifically mentioned as part of the Civil Space Working Group.
Yeah, see, as I understand, you are telling whether InSpace is working with U.S. Department of Commerce, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
especially
because-
under the formal umbrella of the Civil Space Working Group, or engaging in that track 1.5
Yes.
dialogue, U.S. Joint Civil Space Working Group.
Yeah, you're very right. We have given some. See, again, I will tell you. I'll start like this. We start with the feedback from our companies. We have taken inputs from Indian private companies. What are the issues they are facing with government US, working in US? They have given us input. We had compiled the input and given to the government. Presently, directly we are not working with, but US Commerce Department people had met us during some workshop, which we have apprised them during the discussion with the US Embassy. We have apprised them what are the things we need to do with US. That way, indirectly, we are connected. But yes, we hope, because I think 2 weeks back, we have written letters to the government and US Embassy. We will certainly connect with them as and when this response comes. However, it's a very right. We have written to the US Embassy through Government of India, through proper channel, raising our industry concerns or whatever you say, demand, you can say, to be soft sized. And certainly we'll have discussion. Yes, preliminarily we have discussion with them. Sure.
Great. I'm going to jump in here because I've been on both sides of this in industry and in government. So formally, the United States and Indian governments have something called the Civil Space Joint Working Group, CSJ, WG, rolls off your tongue. It has traditionally been led by NASA and the US Department of State. There's an office, OES, Office of Environment and Science, that leads that. On the Indian side, it's traditionally been ISRO and the MEA. That meets every other year. There may be people on the call here that can share some more insights, but within that Civil Space Working Group, there's a handful of programmatic focused initiatives. Obviously, there's the NISAR mission, but there's also a heliotropic working group. There's some other working groups. I don't know how active any one of them are, but the space agencies are talking together. As an outtake of the ISET, the Initiative for Critical Emerging Technologies, in the joint statement, the governments have announced a to-be-developed U.S.-India Commercial Space Working Group. That will be part of the Civil Space Joint Working Group. Sorry for the acronyms. And that is currently being stood up. And I think, Dr. Kumar, you were referencing some ideas to the Indian government. And on the American side, that will be led by NOAA's Office of Commercial Space. I put the staff number in there, Rich DeBello's office. They are working with US industry and the US government to understand what this commercial space working group will look like. USIBC, we're working with both governments. We've made a few recommendations. For example, the Civil Space Working Group meets every other year. Commercial space moves much quicker. It needs to be more regularized, maybe even quarterly, but if not quarterly, regular meetings. Commercial space is very, very broad. We look at it from SATCOM, represents somewhere 60 or 70% of the industry by revenue and activity, but then you also have geospatial, and then you also have exploration activities. You have a long tail of sat-nav and space tourism and other forms of markets. But SATCOM, geospatial, and sat-nav represent the lion's share of those activities. And there may be elements to break down this commercial space working group into each of those segments, because people wanting to do commercial work on the moon are very different than leveraging hyperspectral satellites for ground-based data used in oil and gas exploration. Just I'm taking two very broad examples there. So, of course, we'd like to play an integrated role in that.
Yeah.
Separately, to follow up on the idea of a reverse trade mission, we would be very, very supportive of that. I personally would recommend that this look at the March timeframe. And the reason I say March, every year in Washington, D.C. is one of the largest commercially oriented trade shows. It's called Satellite. So it'll be Satellite 2024, has many thousands of people, big booth. If you could leverage your reverse trade mission and have an Indian delegation pass through that event and then go onward to other activities, I think it's a great opportunity just to leverage many, many, many people in the Washington, D.C. area. I'd be happy to host a sidebar event. We've been pleased to host several ISRO chairmen. Most recently, we hosted the current ISRO chairman and Mr. Goenka in January. I'm happy to set up some additional conversations. But to be straightforward, we need to move it down a layer. Procurement is a huge issue that we've come up with, not only American companies trying to sell into the Indian market, but Indian companies trying to sell into the American market. We've mentioned export controls. Export controls work both ways. Both governments have export control regimes. Trust is important. Processes are important there. And then, beyond that, secure regulatory environment, access to spectrum, FDI. These are a few of the core issues that we think we need to address, but we need to get down to a lower level from the high level conversations. And then business is done very incrementally and sequentially. So, those conversations have to happen all the time. And as more and more American and US companies get together, whether it's investment, sharing technology, sharing equipment, sharing services, there'll be more of these activities. And we think we need a quarterly or thereabouts opportunity to have some coverage. So if two companies want to work together, develop a new idea, raise some capital, it might be American capital, Indian technology, and it might be a third country market. I mean, this is how the space industry works, right? We got that regulatory certainty and trust that if we put together this big deal, that it actually could get implemented, and we might need both governments' approval in certain instances. I'll stop right there. I said too much as usual. I would welcome any response from you, sir, anyone else on the line, to see if we have any other questions as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jacob. You summarized this well. And now Civil Space Commercial Group is being formed again, or being augmented rather, in the new space era now. Correct. I think Mr. Chaitanya is there. He is raising his hand, or he has forgotten to lower his hands. Yeah.
No, I think that was the question about how the Civil Space Working Group
Civil Space,
works.
yeah. So he can lower his hands. Okay.
Do we have any questions?
I actually have a question.
Yes, Samirji, boliye. Tell me.
So just wanted to ask you, where does geospatial fit into the entire gamut of issues that have been discussed and in the new structure? Because we focus a lot on geospatial work as well as SATCOM related work at USIBC. So just wanted to understand how exactly is looking at geospatial related work in the new structure.
See, in this, we are not distinguishing anything. You must have seen the geospatial policy guidelines are already out, that the data above 5 meters will be free, 30 centimeter to 5 meters you have to do. So is it all vertical? All three, upstream, downstream, midstream, wherever they want to. I will say that anything under the sun, our Indian private entities can do. There's no restriction at all. Whatever ISRO was doing, ISRO is kind enough to extend its technology. They are transferring technology. We already have SSLV technology transfer we are giving to private industry. PSLV already private consortia is building. There are many more things. We are announcing opportunities for seed funding the private sector. You see, the application is a very important. Downstream section is very important section. And we have started our seed fund scheme from there in agriculture sector. So development of startups, those who are using space technology for agriculture sector. Next, we may take up another vertical, maybe disaster management and urban development. So these are the things. It's very important sector, and really, and we will enable it, and we see with the same eye, right? Ultimately, to generate the space demand, this sector has to be brought up. Communication, that location, geospatial basically, then application sector. Then only demand will generate. Otherwise, you put a constellation, people doesn't know what all it does. You will be surprised to know in India, there is a huge network of ATMs, that banks ATM. Teller machine. See, people doesn't know that what is the role space technology playing in this. So there is a big opportunity in India as well, and there is a big scope. So don't worry, please come work in India. We'll be happy.
Wonderful.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vinod Kumar. I think there is a follow-up question on how private sector can engage further with InSpace. So Mr. Pandey, DK Pandey is asking how startups can connect with InSpace regarding technical support.
It's a very simple thing. I have mentioned, I will type it here. I have put in the www.inspace.gov.in. This website is your gateway to connect with Indian space sector. The moment you connect, there is you log in, you register yourself, you will get the login credentials, right? Whether you are in India, US, we don't care. You are connected to the Indian space sector. There are discussion forums, the list of companies. You can go through the companies, what all they do, what all activities they are doing, what is their future plan. Some top companies has given us some input. What we have done is we have compiled them, and one nice coffee table book is also uploaded online. So when you are a part of, yeah, anything. So these are the things, nothing to worry. This is the gateway. Please connect with us. Certainly, you are a part of our Indian space ecosystem. Yes, Pandey.
Yeah, thank you. Got it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I see that we're actually coming to the hour and want to be sensitive to your time. This was incredibly insightful. I want to thank you. And going forward, as we started up front, we hope this is only the first of many conversations. We would like to invite you and your team back, maybe in a month or two, maybe 2 months might be appropriate, but maybe we can take a particular topic. And so from my experience, things like financial services, funding, investment, insurance, those are a critical element. So maybe in a couple of months, we can do a very targeted conversation, webinar conversation, whatever we want to call it. And we can bring in some people that actually develop these types of programs, actually have access to capital, actually invest. And then, of course, insurance is a key facet of that. And from my experience, that has always been a real gap in the Indian environment, significantly less so. But you have angel investors, you have VCs, you have private equity, you have early stage investments, you have bankers, you have insurance providers. Each of those are different and they have their own role in developing new product, services, infrastructure as well. So that might be a really good conversation because I think it's an opportunity for, American and Indian financiers in various ilks to look at different opportunities. So, but I am open to other ideas around human space flight, space tourism, or whatnot. And if there's any items you want to bring forward, we can organize a much more targeted conversation and build off of this every 2 months or so, bring in another collective, another segmentation and whatnot. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, it's very great idea which you're telling, that access to capital. Yesterday, we had a brainstorming session on decadal vision and strategy for Indian space sector. Full day, and there were many suggestions. And one of the suggestions was this access to capital. So what we have in principle agreed that insurance company, financial institutions, and angel investors all can register at our website, that is InSpace Digital Platform. We will make a separate page for them where they can see companies, companies can see them. So very important, insurers all are coming to InSpace Digital Platform, getting connected, and it's a very nice idea. Next time we can have a webinar with them, and I will request USIBC to please take this lead, and you also register. Associations are also registered with us. Participate in the discussion forum. So that will be the great idea, and we will certain facilitators and all will bring at one platform where 50% of the things they will go themselves and problem is solved. Anything we are there to guide them. So separate page will be there for insurers, separate for the investors. Very nice idea. I appreciate your and looking forward for any time you come. We are there to connect with the people.
Thank you, Dr. Vinod Kumar. That was an excellent interactive session. Thank you so much for joining us today, as well as to the participants. I mean, I hope this is just the beginning, and I hope we further continue this over the next coming days and months and years. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Wish you a nice evening and a good day in the United States. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good day.
you.
Bye.
Thanks,
It's
Jay.
pleasure
Bye,
connecting and
Vinodji.
interacting.
Bye.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaste.
Oh.